You guys, you have no idea who Rebecca is and why you should listen to her. Rebecca, please tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, and the beautiful experiences that you have accumulated, please.
Yeah. So I have an array of working experience, but I started teaching in 2015. So
Okay.
now it's about 10 years.
Okay.
And I've taught in multiple different environments, different educational environments, different types of students from all over the world, and also students like urban students in Los Angeles. Now I teach ELA. I taught language for many years. Now I'm teaching English language arts, which if I'm doing that in an urban area, I teach very much the way I teach English as a foreign language. A lot of the time when I'm teaching mechanics and vocabulary and things like that.
Very interesting. 10 years is a lot of time. 10 years is a lot of time. And it basically tells the world that you have crafted and mastered the skill of teaching English, if you will. Tell me, what's the difference between teaching just English or the art, as you mentioned?
Well, teaching English language arts, I go more into interpreting literature.
Okay.
So that's not something you do so much when you're teaching just English as a language. You will use literature some of the time, or graded forms of like literature classics.
Okay.
But teaching English language arts, you're teaching how to interpret literature. And with the curriculum I have, it's based on materials that would be relatable to my student body. So it's a lot of narratives that are similar to or teach experiences to the kids that live in my area.
Very interesting.
It's relatable.
And so just to give a viewer an example of the arts of you said, so like so do people have to know English very well in order for you to teach them the arts of language, if I got that right?
I would say no, just because it depends on how you teach it, right? So if I'm teaching to someone for whom English is not their first language,
yeah,
then I would try to break it down or provide scaffolding to make it accessible to them.
Okay.
So they would still learn the lesson. I might bring in some of their prior knowledge. I might ask them, have you ever experienced it? You make it kind of more universal, right? So if I'm talking about a book that is about a young girl experiencing growth, then I might ask a question that might be relatable to the language learner. Like, have you ever experienced a time where you've had to think about a decision you made and how it affected other people, and then relate it to what I'm teaching?
Very interesting. Very interesting. Walk me back to your journey of your career. What inspired you to teach English, to become an English teacher, or to basically involve yourself with English language?
So there isn't any one moment, but I'll tell you from a very young age. So I'm third generation Mexican American. My mom was second generation, so she was the second generation to grow up here. But my grandmother was monolingual, so she only spoke Spanish.
Okay.
My mother was a language learner because in the household she only spoke Spanish, and then at school she learned English. So there were some imperfections in how she spoke English, and growing up, third generation, a little girl, I would go to school, and I kind of understood right away that language was a gatekeeping thing, especially in the United States.
Okay.
So I would listen to how she was speaking, and I would say, well, that's not how I'm learning it in school. And I would create these little language lessons for my mom, and she would indulge me because she's a loving mother, and she didn't have necessarily any kind of pride in her language skills that I offended, and I was her kid. So she would indulge me, and I create these language lessons, which largely had to do with pronunciation and things like that. So that was like an initial interest, and then there was my first time traveling to Europe.
Okay.
That had a huge impact on me. That was in my early years of college, and it planted the seed of I want to travel, and I want to find a way to do that with work.
Beautiful. Okay.
Then I went to working in a job for several years at a courthouse, which I had internal issues with that, or like ethical issues with that after a while. And I'm like, I was putting people in jail basically that were
very serious. Yeah.
And I decided I wanted to do something different. So I started teaching. I went with my first thing, which was wanting to travel and teach. So I started teaching English as a second language or foreign language,
Yeah.
and that allowed me to travel a bit and experience the world a bit more. And then I came and planted myself back at home for family reasons,
Okay.
and then that's how I got into teaching ELA. So I started out teaching English as a second or foreign language. I earned a master's in that because I decided that's what I want to do. And even in teaching ELA, it's kind of the core of what I do. I'm still teaching language. I'm still making it accessible. Still teaching the mechanics of language to my students. So I'm still doing that, but it's also with the added aspect of teaching the interpretation of literature and informational text.
That's a beautiful, interesting story. And so, in terms of language, what you mentioned the mechanics of English. Take me back to the outcomes that you achieve when you, for example, teach regular English or the arts. It's like what are the objectives for two branches of this?
Well, for teaching English as in the language and the language aspect of it, it's highly focused on learning vocabulary and how to use the language, right? And with English language arts, I'm teaching all of that, but I'm also adding the human aspect of what literature. Well, that's my first love is literature. So I use them to make my students better people, right? Like what lessons can we learn from this person's experience? So there's just that added element to it. So it's still teaching all the basics and all the other stuff, but there's like looking at your identity within what you're learning. And how does that? I'm teaching middle school kids, so this is a very important part in their life or time in their life. I'm sorry. So I'm teaching them how to kind of navigate through the world, looking at the stories of other people's experiences.
The listener might listen to you and think to like they always ask me these questions. I think they ask you these questions. You have been to many countries, and the question is, what is the best way that we can learn new words, retain them, and what do you think is the best practice in your experience?
So multiple exposures. I mean, there's scientific theory on this, but multiple exposure to a word.
Yeah.
And I think in different ways. So that has to do with repetition, right? But not just repeating the word over and over again, but finding it in different ways, right? You get introduced to the word, maybe you get the definition initially. If you're teaching a lesson as a teacher, for example, you might front load the vocabulary and then have them look at it in context. So how is it used every day? And then have them practice with it. So using the word, and then also there's a speaking element, right? Using the word while speaking, using the word in writing while forming a sentence. I think those are the most, and also games, like using games. Even when I'm trying to acquire a new language, I like to play games. So for me, like some of those language apps that they have, I'm inspired by remembering the vocabulary and doing that through a game. And so I use games when I teach a lot of the time. I do Jeopardy with definitions or put in a word in context and have students try to guess at what the correct word is. Even in my practices, my activities, I'll do stuff like that. So I think that's using it. Also, I'm using words related to a specific topic. That's a good way to remember words, right? So those are some
very interesting. Yes, basically getting exposed to to the same word over and over again. I think the first time you learn the word and you do like your rodeo the first day of getting introduced to this word, I think it goes to your deeper memory. Sometimes it stays in the active memory. It's really weird. Sometimes you might hear this word for like one time and it sticks with you. But sometimes it goes to the deep memory. I don't know how you call it, the deeper part of your memory. And then I think you retract it, like you said, by exposing yourself multiple times to.
Yeah, they say to really internalize a word, like you have to be exposed to at least 5 times in order to like internalize it.
This leads me to the next question, Rebecca. So the question is, what mistakes do you think novice teachers, or have you noticed in your experience that some teachers are making while teaching English?
Okay. So I think like overcorrecting might be one of the bigger things that I think you should avoid. Just because when you do that, you kind of lower the confidence of the learner. So and that could get in their way. It can be a hindrance to them learning and really putting the words to use, because they're going to constantly be analyzing what they're putting out. So I would say, like, when correcting a learner, you might want to just focus on correcting the specific skill that you're trying to teach at that time. That's what I would say about that. Another thing I've encountered once when I was teaching in Spain, I was teaching the kids to pronounce with my American.
Your accent. Yeah.
But I was trying to say, it's a dialect, right? American English is the dialect of English, right? And the teacher who I was co-teaching with learned English in England. And so when the kids were repeating what I was saying, she was saying it was wrong. So they'd come back to me and they'd say, no, my teacher said it's wrong because it's a soft R, it's water, not water, not water. And I said, well, I speak American English. I said, it's just a variation of English. It's not wrong. It's a variation. So I think, like, invalidating another, like an accent or another dialect of a language, I think it's not helpful. I don't think it's positive.
I mean, I actually agree with you. What I tried to do in the past, my niche was American English, and students that studied with me, they loved America and they wanted to master their American pronunciation because they really didn't like the UK accent. So there were times when I constantly, I would say maybe nag the students every now and then, and the students are like, come on, slow down. But that's right. Yeah, I agree with you. So, like,
that's more of a preference of the teacher. Like, don't put that on the student. Like, you learned it that way. I would just say, okay, that's valid too.
Yeah.
But this is the way that I speak English, and this is another way to do it. Even with vocabulary, because like in the UK they use pullover. We use sweater. You know, there's different words. We don't say trousers in the US. We say pants. So it's just a different way. When I teach pants versus trousers, so when I was teaching in Spain, I would just introduce students to both. In the UK or in England, they say trousers. In the US, we say pants. It's a little more casual, but that's that's American English.
What I found is that many students complain across the globe. They say there is an epidemic. I'm sorry to name it, to frame it that way, but they say that there's an epidemic of British English everywhere. It's like, because it's the world was colonized by British, by Brits, and so their English is everywhere. But because of Hollywood machine that is influencing the world with movies and songs, people love American culture, and this is my niche. And so a lot of Russian speakers, for example, they say this is a good drink, for example, and they want to improve the accent. And lately I've been trying to moderately correct them so that they get into the habit of having this inner voice that would tell them it's the, not the. So
yeah, and for me also, my attitude towards that, and people have different approaches or attitudes about these things, but I think accents are beautiful. So I tell my students, they don't have to correct an accent unless you're trying to do something specific, like work in Hollywood and be an actor. Then yes, you're going to manipulate the way that you speak based on the character you're playing, right?
Yeah.
But I tell my students, you don't need to. You just need to be understood. So the things that you need to correct would just be the things that keep you from being understood. But your accent, I mean, some people become famous because of accents, it just depends on what you're trying to do with the language. But in general, if it's just for speaking and communicating, I say you don't have to work on correcting the accent, only the things that hinder you from being understood by others. That's it. Because language is meant to communicate, and as long as you're capable of doing that with the language you're speaking, then I think you're fine. And I love teaching pronunciation, but that's why I say that before I do that, and I play games with that kind of stuff when I'm teaching pronunciation. I do like to teach it, but I also want everybody to feel like their experience is validated, where they come from.
Yes,
that's beautiful, and that's fine. And we're just learning the language for communicating, right? Or whatever aim you have with it. And that's one of the first questions I ask students when I'm teaching a class, like, why? What is your reason for learning English? What are you going to do with it? What is your goal?
Yeah.
And it's important to know when you're teaching, because then you would structure your lessons around achieving the goal that your students have.
You can tailor this, your approach to what they can or like to do. Sure. And this takes me to question number 4. How do you integrate AI with your teaching? Because AI has been everywhere. People swear by it and say you have to use it or you will be left behind. So what do you think? How?
I use AI all the time. I like it for its purposes, but I have students that turn in stuff with AI all the time. And I'm like, okay, so I think AI is a useful tool when you know what you're doing already.
Okay.
So acquire the skills that you need to be able to do what AI does, and use AI as a shortcut to not having to do the tough work of like being creative or thinking when you're in a time crunch or something like that. Like I use it to create practices or activities and things like that, but I know what I'm commanding it to do because I know what skill needs to be. So when my students turn in something, a lot of the times if it's on a novel and they're just answering comprehension questions, I'm like, who is this character? AI doesn't know what you're talking about or what you're asking it to do. So you just produced a character from this author in another novel and in your response, and that's not correct. So you're giving me information that's incorrect. Don't use AI until we know like what you're gonna really ask for, and you can proofread what AI does and know that when it's wrong, because AI is wrong a lot. It does not produce everything that you need all the time. So I would say teachers, if you're using that, fine. I mean, it cuts time away. We have a lot of work to do. Teachers do work a lot. It's not just what you're doing in the class. It's preparation. It's internalizing stuff. You can use it as a shortcut, but also always proofread, because then you're going to look silly if you're going to misguide your students if you're not proofreading what you're producing with AI to do exactly what it is you need it to do. So I'm all for AI, but not on its own. You still have to work. Use it as a tool, not as the teacher.
What are some ways that you think people can use AI for? So, for example, what are some tools that teachers can actually effectively and efficiently incorporate in their lessons?
Like grading a text, for example, you want it to be at the level of your student. So a lot of times they'll say, create a question for, and I would say whatever it's specifically a 7th grader with simple, and then it'll give me something and I'll say simplify it.
Okay.
Simplify it. Make it more concise. Whatever it is I need it to do. I use it that way, but like sometimes it takes multiple, and it takes time to like master how to ask for what it is you need AI to do, right? I think also creating practices and activities, that's really helpful for that. I'll give it a set of words. Icebreakers for language teachers especially. Give me some ideas for icebreakers, and you can even give it specific parameters and then get your answer. I still proofread it. I still modify it though. I still use it. I use all that information and then I tailor it for what I specifically need to do. But I think it's really helpful that way. Icebreakers takes creativity, and it takes, I use some of or sometimes I'll combine 2 of the ideas that AI comes up with and then create my own things based on my own level of what I think is interesting and going to be helpful. But always proofread and adapt.
Yeah, of course. I mean, sometimes, honestly, I would say, in the risk of sounding ridiculous or silly, you have to proofread. Yeah, I know. But one thing that I don't like about AI is AI. I think it's biased, and it doesn't cut through the noise, if you will. Meaning that even, sometimes I learn English words every single day, Rebecca, every day. And what I don't like about AI is sometimes it will just hinder my educational progress under the guise of, it is an explicit word. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to be respectful. And I record myself learning words for hours. And if I come across a word that I don't know, it will just not give me the definition. Can you believe it? So I was like, I need to report this to OpenAI or something. Like it's
so it's limiting.
Yeah, it's limiting.
It
Yeah,
won't teach you the most exciting thing about learning a new language is like learning the curse words and profanity and all of that some of the time,
yeah,
like
yeah, of
especially if you're
course.
a young learner, you want to know all
Yeah,
these things.
yeah,
Um, so that's interesting. I've never tried it because I know just
yeah,
like in the English language, I know what all the bad words mean.
yeah.
So I've never tried it, so I didn't know that it does that. So that's
Yeah,
interesting.
so it does that, of course. And so, but yeah, like you said, we have to keep it moderate and we still have to use our brains because I don't know if you heard of the Dieter for CEO. There's a podcast that interviews a lot of entrepreneurs and interesting people. He says when people use AI a lot of times, their brain, so they basically stop using their brain a lot, and that's bad. Same way,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have thoughts on it?
Yeah, I do. And when I'm using AI, I really think about that. Like, okay, I need to write a letter. What I'll do is, one way I use AI is I will still write, like if I need to write a letter to parents or I need to write, and I do notice like AI can make you lazy that way. You don't have to. You just
Yeah.
say, write a letter to a parent, da, 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 da. I've done that before, but I also know that I don't like.
How can a native speaker start teaching English? So we have a lot of capable, beautiful souls that are stuck into 9 to 5, which is something they don't like. I mean, we like our job, right? But they don't like it. So how can they start teaching if, let's say, they are capable of that, they are considering that, and they love people?
Okay, so there's a couple ways to go about it, right?
Sure.
The way I did it is I looked for a program,
Mhm.
and so this is one way. You go to a language learning program, and I had never taught before. I worked doing administrative work for 17 years before getting into teaching,
Yeah.
and I had never been in front of a classroom. I didn't really know what it took. Had I gone straight into a job, because you can do that too, you're
Okay.
not really going to be lost and not know what you're doing, and you're not going to gain confidence in what you're doing if you go straight into just acquiring a job and all it requires is that you have a degree in a subject like English, for example. I didn't do that. I went into this program, and this program incorporated real teaching experiences. So I
Mhm.
went after a CELTA because I thought, like, okay, what would legitimize me as a teacher the most? I did some research, and having a CELTA internationally is recognized as a certification and it's respected.
For someone who doesn't know what salsa is, can you elaborate a
It's
little
a
bit?
certificate in English language teaching. Forgot what the A stands for.
Sure, sure. No, okay. So it's like TEFL, right?
It's different. It's a little bit higher. So the TEFL is one, teaching English as a foreign language, but
Yeah.
this one has a little bit higher. What can I say? It has a little more prestige to it, I guess, and because it's a tougher program. It
Beautiful.
requires a little more of the student. So I did that. You can do it over time, or you can do like a condensed 1 month program. That's the one I chose because I'm a little crazy like that. I wanted to get it over with. I wanted to start teaching. And that was basically
How you started?
almost like going to a job. It was like 6 to 8 hours of an intensive learning of how to teach the English language as a foreign language. So that was interesting, but I went to go live in Mexico City, and just because it's somewhere I always wanted to visit, and the program to do that costs the same as doing it in the US while living there. So I found a program in the US, and I'm in California, so there was one in San Diego. I'm in Los Angeles, that wasn't too far, but it would cost the same for me to go to Mexico City and have like an experience and pay for the cost of living and all of that. It was the same cost. So I decided to do the adventure.
The one
And
with Spain, yeah.
yeah, and what was awesome about that too is that I really bonded with my group because we were all just studying the entire time and spending all this time in class together. Those are lifelong friends that I made, even in that part of my journey.
Wow.
And then you just make friends with everywhere you know, all the teachers where you teach and some of your students. But that is like a super memorable experience I had for that 1 month of intense learning. And so you have like a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn in the classroom setting, you have a coach, and then you have a class that you're working with, and you're being observed. So you go and you do the practical part of everything that you learn in
Yes.
front of actual students, and you're being graded on it. So it's a whole intense experience.
Mm,
And you have your peers too that you're judging yourself against, like, oh, well, how did they do in their lesson, and
yeah.
how am I doing in my lesson. But some of them who had teaching experience obviously fared a little bit better than I did because
Mm,
they had the comfort of being in front of students. So that's one thing that this experience offered me because I had never done that.
mm,
So being in that classroom with actual students and teaching them and feeling that responsibility of conveying the information and having them retain what you're teaching and be interested,
yeah.
um, it was a good experience to have that before I actually went into a classroom. So I highly recommend that. You can also find a job, right, that already has a training program incorporated in it. And that's another way to go. That's not the way I went because I wanted to get the certificate and then find the job where I wanted to work.
Yeah.
But because not every job offers the training, right? They want you to already have the training and some experience before you come there. These
Catch 22, 10 years
desirable,
of experience. Yeah,
exactly. So it just depends on how you want to do it.
exactly. No, that's beautiful. I mean, that's almost how I started as well. So there was a language school that I graduated from, and then they said, Kamal, you can start teaching kids. They were short of teachers, and this is how I started. I was basically watching how teachers teach, taking notes for a month, I would say, and then slowly but surely covering teachers when they couldn't attend the class or do stuff. And then as I did that, extensive preparation and all of that, and forward to today, this is how I've also spent like a lot of years teaching.
And one thing I would like to add to that is kind of on the mistake end of things, or the not the best way to. I think one mistake that I've seen is that people thinking just because you speak, it's your native language, it's going to be easy to teach. It's not.
Mm,
And I've had friends that were inspired by my experience and went to do it. And they're like, okay, I just sold everything. And they went without having any experience to go do a program
yeah,
in Spain or something somewhere. And they came home like a couple of weeks later because they weren't quite prepared for what it required of them. And so they said it was just too intense for me. And I was like, that's fine. It's not for everyone, but I highly encourage people to do it, especially if you want to travel. It's not that difficult, but it's also just because you're a native speaker doesn't mean you're going to be immediately good at it.
exactly.
So if the expectation you have, you're going to be disappointed when you go to do it. If you understand that it's going to take some work on your end, it's not going to be easy just because you're a native speaker, then, it could be an excellent fit. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from doing it. I'm just saying it's not just because you speak the language that you're going to be able to teach it. You do have to kind of develop some skills in order to do it. And there was something else I wanted to say about that.
Take your time. Take your time.
One thing that you'll find when you start teaching is that countries where they do have language classes,
Yeah.
they do want you to come and teach the speaking part,
Yeah.
but know that those students are going to be really good at understanding the mechanics and grammar rules. And as a native speaker, sometimes you're not going to be prepared for those questions. So make sure that you internalize your lesson before you go. And then also don't give answers that don't make up a response to a question that you get. If you don't know something, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm not sure about that. I'll come back to you. Let me do some research because actually that's a really good question. It's okay to not know everything.
Yes.
That's like one mistake you can make as a teacher is like
Yes.
guessing at a response or just answering because you feel prideful at the moment and you don't want to let your students know that you don't know. It's okay to not have the exact answer to that question.
I think it takes integrity because I know for a fact, I witnessed many, like I would say honestly, not judging anyone, but like I've witnessed when teachers try to save face, and it's bad. It's actually hurting the students. And I agree with you. Having integrity in class is way more important than saving face or.
Then you lose the respect of your students in a way. So then they're not going to trust you. Why would you want that?
Yeah.
Why would you want, it's important for your students to trust you, because when you lose that, then you're not going to be an effective teacher in their eyes. Exactly. They're not going to trust what's coming out of your mouth if you're doing that.
Exactly.
And you get caught, don't do that to yourself. Just be honest.
And the one thing that teachers, you said, complain, the native speakers like this. So you had native speaking friends, acquaintances that told you that they could not do it. What was it that they could not do? Was it the dissecting grammar and studying it, or was it diving into the dungeons? What exactly?
I just think in the case that I had with the friend that I told you about, they just didn't expect it was going to be work. Like they thought, oh, I know the language, so yeah, I can teach it. Well, you have to actually kind of understand what's involved in that before. I mean, it's fine to try it, and maybe it's not for everybody. But that's what that particular person found is like, oh no, it was tougher than I thought. I wasn't expecting that, and it's not for me. And I said, that's fine. You tried it. It was some exploration.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But also one thing I want to bring your attention to is if you travel and you are a native speaker, I think everybody loves, like you said, having you for speaking clubs. Like speaking clubs, and so have you noticed, like, have you experienced the love of people in, I would say, I don't know if you've been to third world countries, but I'm just interested. I have a friend, he lives in a third world country in Central Asia, and he says he's regarded, or he feels, as a king. He's American from New York, and he says, because of the English language, because I'm a native speaker, I feel like a celebrity. I've got friends visiting me, taking me places, buying me food, and it's a blessing. So, I mean, I'm really amused by his stories. And I was wondering, like, what was your story?
Yeah, I have not taught in third world countries, but even wherever I go, it's kind of the feeling that I get. Even in France, for example, which is not a third world country at all. It's like I'm a mini celebrity, especially because I'm from LA. It's like, oh, that's the girl from LA, and people want to speak and hear me speaking in English with my American accent, specifically from LA. And like parties would happen because I was there. Like, oh, we have to have an after party because the girl from LA is here. But this is not in Paris, mind you. This is like smaller towns or cities in France. But yes, in Spain, the same. That's the girl from LA, or that's the girl from the US, the American girl. So yes, I've experienced that.
That's the beauty, of being a teacher. You're kind of being a social star, if you will, right? When you teach English and travel.
Yes, and that's a fun part of it, for sure.
Yeah, that's a perk. That's a perk. And this takes me to the last question that I had for you. So anyone that wants to improve their English. So for example, I'm an English language lover. I love English. I swear to you that I have flashcards of new words, and I try to basically, improve myself in English. So I'm sure we have hundreds of thousands of students across the globe doing the same thing. Maybe want to master the language, learn it, perfect it. What is your advice? How can they do it from the lens of your experience, from what you think could work, etc.?
I think the most important element there is your level of investment, right? You're explaining for you what your experience was and your interest in acquiring the language and being proficient in it. There has to first be investment, like a level of investment. You have to be very interested in wanting to do it and make the effort, right? Make the effort in practicing, like actively practicing it is going to be the way, right? I think as a teacher, like getting your students to do project-based stuff, when that's usually at the mastery level, you start like really doing some interesting projects with students, like videos or interviews or things like that, where they go out, your students go out into the public and actually engage with native speakers, asking questions they're complex, and then having like a back and forth in an interview, for example. That's one way as a teacher to give your students activities that they can do, that they find interesting. Immersing yourself in the language, right? Like surrounding yourself. Once you get to a certain level of proficiency, really trying to do that. Finding opportunities to immerse yourself or to engage in active practice of language use.
It's like whether getting employed in a foreign company, right? Whether it's uh, maybe joining classes, dance classes, whatever that English is spoken in.
Yes, exactly. Those are great examples. Also, reading books in English, watching TV shows
Okay.
with subtitles that are, if it's American English you want to acquire or British English, then do that. Especially, I think TV shows are important for learning idioms, for example. That's something that's very challenging for non-native speakers because these are meanings that are built into our culture.
Yes.
Or built from our culture. And I tell my students, even my current students that are native English speakers, mostly, idioms are not something that are natural. It's something that you hear. Well, I guess they are kind of natural if you're born in the culture of the language that you're speaking, right?
Yeah.
But you don't naturally acquire them. You have to really look at the language and expose yourself to the culture in order to get the meaning of those. And I did teach idioms in a classroom, and that was interesting because I'd have to use a lot of pictures and things to kind of have my students wrap their mind around the meaning of the idiom.
You know, it's really interesting because no one takes let's say, an English learner into the journey of being an American. For example, when you went to school, you had floppy joes. Who on earth would even if you are a C1 speaker from, I don't know, Russia, you would never know what a floppy joe is, for example, right?
You mean a sloppy joe or?
Sorry, sloppy joe. Even I made a mistake. You see?
That's okay. Oh, and one of the most important things I think for a learner to understand is that, yes, make mistakes. Make mistakes all the time. Be okay with that. It's called a growth mindset, right? Have a growth mindset. Be willing to make mistakes because then you're not going to learn if you're not, because you're going to hold yourself back from engaging with the language if you're too worried about making a mistake.
And this is one of the questions that people ask me. A lot of my students say, Kamal, when I'm with you or when I'm with myself, with my friends, I can speak English normally and I thrive. But when I meet a native speaker, there is something that they freeze. They just seem, they can't, they just can't they can't express themselves and they feel like they are. I think you've heard this question many times. So what would you suggest? How can they not care about being in front of a native speaker or
past that?
Yeah.
Just understand that it's okay. I mean, just really be okay with making mistakes. I mean, that's the only way. And I know that's not easy because even when I'm in France, I'm a language learner when I'm in France. I still don't have the language. I have a basic understanding of a lot of vocabulary and I can say some simple sentences, but I really, and I lived there for a good amount of time, but I was surrounded by a lot of people who spoke English. So that was another challenge in itself, but being willing to make mistakes and you're just going to have to get past that, push past that little point. And I think once you do that, you'll be okay. But there was something else I was going to say on that.
Take your time.
Oh, forgot.
Sorry?
I said I forgot what I was going to say because I answered that other question.
Take your time, sure.
Yeah.
I charge my laptop.
Okay. I think I lost it forever. But it was something on the mistakes thing. Therefore, sorry, lost it. It was very insightful and profound, but I forgot what it was.
I'm sure you will remember it. So let me try to remind you. So the question that I asked is, how do they wrap their head around meeting? So how do they feel?
Oh, what I wanted to say is also, this is as a teacher, okay? As a teacher, I think what I do to kind of deal with the students that are being too shy or don't want to, I actually make mistakes in front of my students to kind of take away that feeling of everybody has to be perfect and you have to speak perfectly. I'll say, oops, I made a mistake. But that's okay.
That's beautiful.
I'm just gonna fix it and move on. And I'll do clumsy little things to kind of break that barrier for my students.
There is beauty
in I'm perfect.
Yeah. I think this is the best. Honestly, Rebecca, There's beauty in humility, and this is what greatest leaders in the world are doing.
I think just being human most of the time is going to be the way to go.
Yeah, regardless.
Whatever you do.
Yeah, whatever you do. So, Rebecca, I have a community that I don't know if you've heard of School Platform. I have a community there, and what I want to do is basically, so the viewers that are watching us. So maybe some students would love to have a masterclass from you for 2 hours, so that maybe they have questions, maybe they want some practice. So it could be like a 2-hour masterclass, a mastermind, if you will. So
Sounds good.
check it out. Thank you so much. Let's
All right.
stay in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.